Welcome to this episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd. Well, is it The Wolf and the Shepherd? We haven't done anything as far as podcasts for a while. Tristan and I, we took a break and we had the spring break message, hey, we're going to take a break. And we kind of came back and then we kind of backed off from the podcast. And there's a variety of reasons behind that. So one of them was both of us changed jobs. And so it was very difficult to get our schedules kind of in line. And we were trying to figure out a way to get that done. And we just couldn't make that work out. And then as we were trying to get that to work out, we actually had our first video removed from YouTube due to misinformation. And so that was very disappointing. And by the way, you can find that video on Rumble. There's no misinformation in it, but we said, there's nothing wrong with this. Like, why did this happen? And then we started noticing we were getting little links for, if you want to learn more about COVID, click here, because apparently we were scaring people. We're like, do we have that much of a reach? Apparently we did. So that was kind of, freaky for us. And then we just got to the point where we're not getting paid to do any of this. So, why bother? So we just kind of took a break. Well, in the midst of that break, a couple of things happened. So, we talked about upgrading equipment and we were kind of in the middle of that. Some of the stuff that we still have is still the original stuff, and we put a pause on that. And Tristan and I met probably here about 2 or 3 months ago, and we said, hey, let's fire it up again. And I said, yeah, let's get that done. But in the midst of that, a couple of things happened. So one, a friend of mine named Mike Bellinger reached out to me, and he said, hey, I want to write some blog articles. And I said, okay, well, we'll put them on the website. So the blog articles are there. There's probably like 45 of them. If you want to check those out, great. But at the same time, Layla, who has been on the show before, she wanted to start a podcast. And I said, well, let me help you. I've got all this stuff that, we made our podcast with. I was like, don't start fresh. Utilize this and just, kind of come in and make your podcast. And so she said, well, okay, I guess I'll do that. And I'm like, look, it doesn't have to be the Wolf and the Shepherd, but we already have the website. We already have all that stuff going. So I figured, why not just go ahead and take advantage of all that? So here we are. So today I brought Layla in to kind of talk to her a little bit about what she wants to do with the podcast, get y'all introduced to that. The podcast, of course, is going to be available on our website. Make everything as easy for her as possible. All I want her to do is get behind the microphone and talk. So, Layla, thanks for coming in here tonight and, talking about this. So, what made you just finally say, hey, I want to go ahead and do a podcast?
You're pretty persistent, Max.
No, not me. Not at all.
No, we have some very interesting people and very interesting things that are going on in Tarrant County, and there's not really an outlet for those people or to know what's going on. I don't know if you're aware of what's going on with the Tarrant Appraisal District, but we've got Chandler Crouch out there who is just doing amazing things for the taxpayers. And Keller City Council has jumped on board with that. Mansfield has jumped on board with that. We have this Tarrant Regional Water District race coming up. We have so many people doing so many cool things in Tarrant County, and I think we should give them a platform and so other people can learn about all kinds of things that are going on that they wouldn't know about otherwise.
Right. And I guess one of the problems with like mass media, right? You get that 2-minute soundbite. You get that, let me ask you a question, maybe give you a follow-up question, and that's all you get, and now we got to go to the weather and sports.
Right.
And spoiler alert, weather, nobody can predict it here. And sports, Cowboys didn't win the Super Bowl again. So it's almost always the same thing, right? But then when you look at that local stuff that goes on that people really should dial into, everything gets kind of masked with the federal level, the nation level, the state level, even the global level or whatever, and they kind of forget about the things they can really have an impact in and get involved in. And some of those local candidates don't necessarily get the time they need to try to explain why things are important. And I'm sure as you drove down to the studio today, I pass by them every day. The signs are coming out, right?
It's sign season.
The for sale signs are,
Yes.
I'm ready to be bought, just put me in office. I'm ready to be bought. So here we come again. But I also know, and we want to talk about that, of course, but at the same time, you don't want to just deal in politics.
Oh, absolutely not. Like I said, there are so many cool people in Tarrant County, again, doing so many cool things. It's just, we need to give them some kind of outlet that people know about these things and know what's happening. And as for the political side, you talk about national and how everybody gets sucked off into that. And people complain about, national politics. How do you think those people got there? We sent them there.
Right.
They did such a terrible job here. We promoted them and sent them to Washington. And talking about signs out here, the signs don't tell you this person is related to so and so.
Right.
You don't have the opportunity
A little
to
bit
learn
nepotistic,
those things.
right?
Yeah. So I think bringing in people that could educate the audience on things that they are important to them on a local level that they're not aware of and won't be aware of. When you talk about local news, yeah, they just want the sound bite. And if they ask a follow-up question, I've been interviewed quite a few times on local news. If they ask you a follow-up question, that's usually surprising because most of them don't have enough information to ask you a follow-up question.
Right. And I think one thing that podcasting allows is that long form conversation. I'm going to guess most of the people that you're going to bring on to your part of this podcast, right, are people I don't really know that much about what's going on, but at the same time, it's things that I would like to know about. And I don't even know that I want to know about these things. And I think that's part of getting that information out there, right? Being able to say, look, this is something you actually should be paying attention to. It's not as big of a deal as, some crazy thing going on in Washington, right? This is in your backyard.
Yeah, this
These
affects
are the
you
things,
daily.
right?
Yes.
Daily, by the hour, by the minute. So let's kind of go back just a little bit of a history lesson. I brought you on the podcast because I wanted to talk about, the Panther Island stuff. We had Mary Kelleher on, great guest, love Mary. She ended up winning the waterboard. God, that kind of sounds bad. She's on the waterboard. She doesn't waterboard people.
Correct.
I know there's probably some people she would like to waterboard, but she's such a nice lady. I don't think she actually would waterboard somebody. Maybe me, after I put her through the ringer and asked her all those questions. But I know that you're kind of connected into some of the Tarrant County politics and all of that, and would like to offer a non-BS, just, sitting here in our studio, unobtrusive, let's hang out, let's have some conversations, right?
Yes. And the Water District and TAD and this Tarrant County College, there are a lot of things that affect all of us. It doesn't matter what party it is. These things affect everyone locally. So we really need to look at, again, how we get these people to stop focusing on party alone and have a discussion.
Well, in some of these elections, right, like Mary, for instance, with the Water District, there was no R or D next to her
no
name.
Primary. No.
Right. There's no primary. It's not like you can vote a straight R or D ticket.
No, not on these down ballot races, but that's the first question you'll be asked. And Mary she has a great answer for that. Water's nonpartisan. It doesn't matter how you vote when it comes to your taxes, when it comes to you flooding, when it comes to water supply. Those things, your party doesn't matter.
Right. I mean, we want clean water, and of course, one of the things that we talked about, where I said, well, Layla, don't pigeonhole yourself, right? Don't get too stuck in Tarrant County, and we kind of argued about that, which was fun. But I remember when we had Mary on the show, I got an email from somebody in Indiana or Illinois.
Yes, she did. She got an email too.
Yeah, and I thought, well, this is the Tarrant Water Board. I didn't even know that existed. And, so just because you think it's just Tarrant County, this could spread around, for other municipalities or counties or whatever that's going to kind of get out. So I think what you're trying to do is good, and trying to offer these folks, some ways to sit down and talk and have a nice long conversation. But I don't, and we're going to get back into politics here in a minute, but you also have some ideas outside of politics. And I think that's where you kind of shifted into gear and said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this.
Yes.
Because you didn't want to be the politics girl.
No, I don't. I didn't. I don't. And we've talked about this too, that you get sucked back in. Hotel California, however you want to say it, but
I prefer Godfather,
yes.
But go ahead.
Once you're in, you can't get out. But again, it goes back to how many interesting people and how many interesting things are going on locally. We have a TCU professor I'd like to bring on, a couple of reporters, some Pulitzer Prize winning authors. There's so many cool people just locally that I think we should hear their story. I don't want it to all be about politics, but I think there are some local issues that once you know, you can't unknow.
Right.
And people should really know at least a baseline of what's going on in their neighborhoods.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people don't really know, right? They don't really know until chaos happens.
Right. And then it's too late.
Right. And I think you are one of those people that can speak so directly to that, because you didn't know about any of this stuff until chaos happens. And I'd like to think it would be better for folks to know about this stuff before the chaos happens. And I think that's maybe part of what you're trying to do, while at the same time giving some other folks a voice, right?
Yes. I never knew what a water board was until a flood in 2007. Mary Kelleher, as you mentioned, she was in the same situation until her property started flooding. She didn't know what a water board was. She had no idea. And she made a comment at an event a few days ago about how she puts her number and her personal number and email on everything, because she doesn't want to treat someone the way she was treated when the chaos happened, and nobody will call you back. You don't know how to get a hold of anybody. And we need more people like that, willing to step up and serve and put their number out there and their email and be willing to help the people.
All right. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think Mary would come onto your show?
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this before we hit the record button, that, we had Mary on our show and we interviewed her, and, Mary was great. Loved talking to her. Fantastic woman, but super nervous in front of the camera.
She's
super
amazing.
Nervous in front of the microphone.
Like interviews.
Yeah. And I know there's a little bit of that nerve in you as well, but we're going to get over that. Right.
Yes.
And we're going to figure out that way to get you over that.
It's just the video. I'm good otherwise.
Yeah. Well, stop looking at the camera.
I'm not looking.
Yeah. Stop looking at the camera. Don't worry about that. So thinking about Tarrant County, right? Thinking about kind of your mission of what you want to accomplish here, other than, you got some voices out there that need to be heard. let's back up a little bit to the politics question and talk about Chandler. Okay. I've seen some of what he's posted on Facebook. Seems like he's out there doing a great job. Somehow I friended him on Facebook, didn't even know who he was. And then we kind of talked about that. I'm like, this dude's my friend on Facebook, and I don't even have a clue what he's doing. But then I saw some of the stuff he was posting about the TAD thing. So can you give us kind of a quick rundown of what's going on there? I think that's kind of at the top of your priority list right now.
Yeah. So Chandler Crouch is a local realtor over here in Keller, and he does what his claim to fame, I guess you would say. He will help you protest your taxes for free. And so he has a huge client list, and all he asks in return is if you need a realtor, you reach out to him and his team. And one of the employees, high-ranking employees at the Tarrant Appraisal District, sent in a complaint trying to get Chandler's realtor license revoked due to literally him helping people with their TAD appraisals.
Okay, I think you need to say that again. Because that quite honestly is unbelievable.
Exactly. And this man did this on Tarrant Appraisal letterhead, as acting in that role.
Well, okay. So do me this favor. Let's back up a little bit. So for those people that don't understand, part of their house payment, or honestly, part of their even rent payment, goes to pay property taxes. So let's kind of 30,000 foot level explain a little bit about appraisal values and what goes on there.
Okay, we're going to need Chandler for that. Because that's not
I said 30,000 foot level. Do you want me to do it,
you do
Layla?
It.
Do you
do it.
Okay, so your property has a taxable appraisal value that you can go on tad.org, look up your property and say, okay, TAD decides, TAD meaning Tarrant Appraisal District, decides your house is worth $100,000. And by the way, if there's a property in Tarrant County worth $100,000, I think we'll go in halfers. We'll go ahead and buy it and probably sell it for $250 because that doesn't exist apparently anymore. But so what Chandler's doing is saying, well, hey, you have this appraisal that goes in, and based off that appraisal, you get charged a percentage amount of that for your taxes. Now, you can then be told your tax percentage got lowered, so your taxes went down. But if your appraisal amount goes up and the percentage goes down, a fifth grade math teacher can explain to you why you actually paid more in taxes. And I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, what kind of got Chandler a little wound up, right?
Probably, because there's so many of them. And anybody can protest your taxes. You can protest your own. But Chandler was taking another look, and especially if you give him access to your account, now he has this whole pool to look at. So he has a big overview where nobody else really has that, aside from TAD.
What do you mean by the overview? Do you know?
So, I want to say he had, and I could be wrong, but I want to say he had 28,000 people say, please protest my taxes. So now he has a sample of Tarrant County of what all these, you're looking at everybody's. You're not just looking at yours or going out here and looking at a few on the website. You are looking at this huge sample of Tarrant County. And they had a real problem with that. A government agency, I know it'll shock normal people to know this, but it doesn't shock those of us that know, a government agency that doesn't want you looking into what they're doing.
Right.
It's kind of scary. And there was a little back and forth. Did the board know that this employee sent this in? And so now it's escalated to the point that the Keller City Council has recalled the chairman of the Tarrant Appraisal Board. I believe Mansfield has joined on that. And so then there was a questionable thing.
Well, before you go any farther, Keller recalled that. So what does that mean?
That they wanted to, so this is this is kind of like the Tarrant Tarrant Regional Water District. They have odd elections. You and I can't go vote for the Tarrant Appraisal Board. The Tarrant Appraisal Board is voted on by cities and school districts, different entities. And depending on how big that entity is, depends on how many votes they get.
Okay.
So Keller voted to recall the chairman of the board, the Tarrant Appraisal Board. Well, apparently there's questions on how you would reappoint someone in that role during their term, because her term is still valid. So to make sure they could put who they wanted to on there, when she was recalled by Keller, she resigned.
Okay. Almost like the Nixon thing.
Yes.
Nixon knew he was going to get, he was going to get kicked out of office. He's like, I'm going to quit before this happens. I mean, good for him. I mean, because he kind of saw the writing on the wall. So apparently this lady that this happened to kind of saw the writing on the wall, right?
Yeah, and again, this is ongoing and current, so I would really rather Chandler take this on because I'm not 100% certain on...
But the reason I'm bringing all this up is these are the things you kind of want to talk about. When something happens like this, you got to have a voice, whatever. But in the midst of that, let's talk to some Pulitzer Prize winning reporters. Let's talk to, you talked about the photographer earlier. Without, saying who it is, just kind of give me that little rundown of, the Ford generation guy to jog your memory back.
Yes, there are, of course, many talented photographers in our area. We're lucky to have a lot of artists here, and one of them is a fourth generation Fort Worth photographer, and he did a project a couple of years ago at UNT where he used his great grandfather's camera to take these pictures, and I went and participated in it, and you had to stand still for I don't remember how many seconds while he
like the old school, like hide under the deal, and
you can't move. And they were called his project was called The Walking Dead because all these pictures his great grandfather had taken on this picture or camera. Of course, all those people are dead, and by the time this, at some point, all these people that did this one will all be dead. But it's just, there are so many interesting people and so many interesting things that go on in Fort Worth that, again, with our local news, they don't really get any coverage.
Why do you think that is?
Money.
Right, but come on, we're not going to do yes, no questions, Layla. We talked about this.
I said money.
Right.
It is. It's a lot to do with money. I am very impressed with the Fort Worth Report. They've been on the scene, I want to say 2 years now. I may not have that correct, but they're an online news source.
Okay.
And they
haven't heard of Fort Worth Report, so
you should go.
Let's give them a little commercial. Even though, by the way, Fort Worth Report, if you'd like to sponsor this, I just got to pull back some of the old Wolf and Shepherd stuff.
Go right ahead.
But no, tell us about the Fort Worth Report.
They are a local news organization that they are all online. They are funded by donors, and they have done a phenomenal job reporting on the Tarrant Regional Water District. They've done a better job than any news organization. Now, I have to give the Fort Worth Weekly their props because for years they were the only people that would report on the Tarrant Regional Water District and what was really going on, unlike our local paper that was mostly a cheerleader for anything going on. Whatever they said goes. So
I know where you're going,
yes.
And I think some folks that are probably going to listen to this, they know where you're going there.
But the Fort Worth Report is a much more balanced look at things that are going on. And
Do you know any folks over at the Fort Worth Report?
I know a couple. One of the reporters I worked with a lot, she moved on to a bigger job for her, but the people who have replaced her are actually doing a fantastic job. I mean, I've really been impressed, and it's hard for a news organization to impress me.
So they're not sponsored by Pfizer.
Not yet. No, I'm
Right.
hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and then when that happens,
Yes.
it's like, oh, we got to write that off, right? I mean, I remember when the Keller Citizen was independent. I don't know if you were around here when it was or not, but then it got bought out or whatever. I don't even know if the Keller Citizen exists anymore.
I don't either. The good thing about Fort Worth Report being online, one, they can hit pretty quick on things.
I mean, and yes, I'm showing my age a little bit about like a physical newspaper you had to like pick up or gets delivered on Tuesday to your mailbox for free or whatever. I mean, that part sucks.
Yes.
But the whole news organization just went away.
Yeah.
Right. It was funded by, if you wanted to sell your car, you went down to the Keller Citizen and you paid whatever it was to put a classified ad in there. Or if you were running a local business, you had your ad, so they had the ad sales or whatever. And then it just died. Yeah. I mean, it just went, okay. And next thing you know, I think it got bought out and then it just went away. Yep. Yeah, it's gone.
They're all gone.
Yeah.
But Fort Worth Report has also, they do real good about when people are filing for office, they'll put out, of course, it's a short background, but they find the basic information and put that out. And a lot of other places sometimes you can't even find who's running.
Right.
So it's been helpful, I think, in that sense that.
Well, around here, you got to drive down Golden Triangle. There's all those signs. I saw a water district sign. I don't know who it is, and I can already see the look in your eyes right now. Like, don't mention that name. Good news is I don't remember who it was, but we drive by them. Like I remember when the hailstorm hit, and it was like a mix of roofing signs and people running for office. I'm like, I think the roofers are winning, right? Because they have more signs out. I mean, most people don't pay attention to that, but I know the marketing strategy behind that is it's that recognition. You've got to see that name, but once those signs pop out, people think an election's coming up, right? And then they're going to get interested in at least a certain aspect, right? And most people don't even know what the water board does, or the only reason I kind of know is because of you and Mary, right? But I guarantee you, we could hop in the car right now and drive by there. I don't know what any of those other offices are doing. I'm like, oh, the railroad commissioner, is it who wears the Oshkosh Bagosh hat the best? I mean, I don't know what any of this stuff does.
Well,
right? And most people don't.
Here's a good one for you. The railroad commissioner has nothing to do with the railroad.
Well, that makes sense.
You can't make this up.
So the water board is running the electrical grid, apparently. I mean,
let's not start on the grid.
I'm getting you wound up, right?
Yes,
I'm getting you wound up. Well, look, I'm looking forward to, helping you out with your podcast. I think you've got some really good ideas, and I just wanted to give you that sounding board. And most likely, I know she doesn't like even looking in the camera. She just, I think she just finally realized there's actually a camera going right now, right? I'm going to be the guy behind the scenes, but you know a lot of interesting people with stories they need to tell and everything, and so
it's going to be fun.
I'm looking forward to this. So, parting message. We're
going to have a lot of fun.
We're going to have a lot of fun. I like it. Yep. Well, with all that said, hey, for the Wolf and the Shepherd listeners that are subscribers on YouTube or whatever, all of this is still going to be on our YouTube channel. There's going to be, by the way, a separate, area for your podcast and everything on there. I guess we're switching to a production company or whatever, which is just barely one step above analog, but we're going to make it work. Things are going to get better on that front or whatever. So please listen to, all of the folks that Layla's going to bring in. She's going to be sharing all this, of course. And hey, if you want to go back and listen to, Tristan and I's banner, of course, we welcome that. And we're not saying we're done, but this is Layla's show. That this is not Max's show. This is not Tristan's show. This is not the Wolf and the Shepherd show. But we wanted to offer this up to her, and we wish you luck. We're here to help you, and I think it's going to be great. So anyway, with that being said, thanks, Layla.
Thank you.
And I did get a new mouse for those people that actually watch. So great to see y'all, and we're looking forward to the new content. So y'all be good.